Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum and I'm here today at the Cody Firearms Museum taking a look at an interesting prototype rifle that they have in their collection. So of course, the collection here includes, among many other things, the entirety of the Winchester Company collection, which was both kind of an encyclopedic collection of all extant firearms that was nice as a reference for Winchester's engineers, and it also includes a lot of experimental guns that Winchester tested out, decided not to produce, and then stuck back in the gun collection. And this is one of those. This is actually a Winchester Model 1905 self-loading rifle, basically introduced as a semi-automatic alternative to Winchester's older lever-action rifles. This is still part of the design of this is still part of the legacy of Winchester's split with John Browning, which is why it doesn't have a normal charging handle on it. Browning had patented that, and so instead, Winchester used a plunger at the front of the action. This one's locked open at the moment, to cycle. Anyway, there would be basically three firearms in this family. There was the Winchester 1905, the 1907, and the 1910. And with each change of model, the cartridge got more and more powerful. That was one of the bigger complaints against this rifle, is the cartridge just wasn't quite powerful enough for the sort of serious game hunting that Winchester was advertising it for and trying to get a market for. So this particular one, like I said, is a 1905. It would have originally been in 32 WSL, Winchester self-loading caliber. However, in 1919, Winchester used this particular rifle to experiment with a conversion to 45 ACP. And of course, where the question with such a carbine today might be, but does it take Glock mags? The question in 1919 was, but does it take 1911 mags? And the answer is yes. So there's actually not that much that changed on this gun from the 1905, but there are a couple elements. So most distinctively, there's a 1911 magazine sticking out the bottom of it. In addition, the ejection port was actually opened up. So the original design has an ejection port that just stays flat right across here. And clearly, in testing, they found that the 45 auto case is rather larger in circumference than the 32 WSL that was originally made for this rifle, and so they needed a little bit more space to reliably eject cartridges. Now we have a release button here that may look familiar to you. That is in fact just a 1911 magazine release. The release button itself is on the other side, and it comes right out, just like you would expect. Now, one of the interesting side effects of working with one-off tool room sort of experimental guns is that this conversion uses completely standard 1911 magazines, and the magazine catch works on the standard 1911 magazine catch right there in the magazine. This particular one, however, has this interesting and unusual sort of oval cutout on the back of the magazine. I have not seen something like that before. It doesn't have any mechanical interaction with this carbine. What exactly that's there for, I have no idea. It was probably an experiment of some sort at another time, and this was a 1911 magazine that was lying around, and so, hey, well, we need a 1911 mag to test this carbine out, we'll just use that one. Along with the new magazine release, of course, is a new magazine well to properly support the totally different geometric style of magazine for the 1911, and a barrel that is actually marked 45 Auto Colt, and a rather huge bore diameter compared to what you would expect for one of the Winchester self-loaders. So the tang is marked Winchester Model 1905 SL self-loading. This receiver would have come out of standard production for use as a test bed. So there you have the magazine actually inserted. And it's interesting to note that the way that this conversion has been designed, the magazine actually rides really quite high in the action, which in theory ought to lead to pretty reliable feeding, since the cartridge doesn't have to change direction much. It just pushes straight forward out of the magazine into the chamber there. Now, we don't know exactly why Winchester chose not to put this into production. It may have been a commercial judgment. They didn't think that this would be a competitive carbine in the marketplace. Certainly at the time, they were looking for more of a hunting market, something that was, in fact, the Winchester self-loaders were hampered, if anything, with cartridges that were not sufficiently powerful, and the 45 ACP would be a step down on that scale compared to all the previous models. Or they may have had some type of reliability or other functioning problems with this that they decided just weren't really something that they would be able to overcome, and put the project aside for that reason. Interestingly, right at the same time, they did also make a version of the exact same thing, a 1905 Winchester self-loader, but converted to 9mm parabellum and adapted to use Luger magazines. Unfortunately, I don't have that one that I can show you here today. So it's really cool to get a chance to take a look at a prototype like this and get a look at some of the stuff that Winchester was doing behind the scenes. Now, obviously, they didn't figure that this was something that would be sufficiently commercially viable to actually produce. So it's literally a one-of-a-kind gun. Finished it, decided it wouldn't work, went back in the archives, and rarely to see the light of day again until today. So a big thanks to the Cody Firearms Museum for giving me the opportunity to show it to you guys. This is one of the guns that is not generally on display in the museum, but they have just recently rebuilt all of the galleries, and they have thousands upon thousands of firearms on display. It's a really excellent museum for firearms history and development. Highly recommend it if you're in Cody passing through. Thanks for watching.